Honestly, I don't know if there's ever been a time that the ruling class in this country has ever had such different goals than the people that they're supposed to actually govern, actually answer to, right? The people who they work for, right? But here's where we're at, thanks to the values and beliefs of Kamala Harris and way too many people just like her, New York City and other blue communities that are literally as far away from Biden's border crisis as you could possibly ever hope to be, they're getting absolutely crushed, man. And there really is no end in sight. And I'm going to show you how real residents in New York are reacting, guys. But first, this is why they're struggling. This is where the disconnect starts.
Well, it's the height of irresponsibility for the commander-in-chief to suggest that we have to build a wall across our southern border because there are terrorists who are trying to invade the country. It couldn't be farther from the truth.
We're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals. That's correct. That is correct. And what we've got to do is we cannot have any more policy like we have under this current president that is about inhumane conduct, that is about putting babies in cages, that is about separating children from their parents. And we have got to have policy that is about passing comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway towards citizenship, shutting down these private
Clarify this for me, though, because I do find it confusing. Yeah. I believe if someone crosses over the border, it is illegal, and you would decriminalize it.
I would not make it a crime punishable by jail. It should be a civil enforcement issue, but not a criminal enforcement issue.
Okay.
So there should be, you got to play by the rules, but we can't treat people like criminals.
It is a serious mistake to conflate criminal justice policy with immigration policy, as if they are the same thing. They are not. I have personally prosecuted everything from low-level offenses to homicides. I know what a crime looks like. And I will tell you, an undocumented immigrant is not a criminal.
Criminal justice policy and immigration policy, without a doubt, they are indeed the very, very same thing, especially when a lot of the immigrants that are coming are actually committing crimes, especially brutal ones, man. But everything that Kamala just said there, it sounds nice, it's great, but it's all complete and total fantasy. But this is what the far leftist actually believes in. They believe in total fantasy, basically. They don't actually believe in it. They can't possibly actually believe this stuff. They know exactly what they're doing, but they believe that you're stupid. They definitely believe that. And they believe that you're actually going to fall for all this sleight of hand, fall for the feel-good kumbaya stuff while they literally flood the country with as many people as possible to fulfill their plans. Whether those plans are about finding a way to actually let people vote or whether it's just using them to redraw and redistrict Congress, or who knows, some of them actually have goals on cheap labor. Some of them just actually want chaos. Who knows? Whatever the goal, it's all based on fantasy, and there are real world consequences, man. And the distance between the people on the ground in these communities and the people in the ivory towers as far away as, in Washington, it's never, ever been greater.
Now to the latest on the city's migrant crisis and a rally in Brooklyn where some people who live in one neighborhood want a migrant shelter closed, blaming it for recent acts of violence in the community, including 2 separate shootings over the weekend. Fox 5's Jessica Formoso is live in Clinton Hill with the very latest. Jess?
Natasha, the residents of Clinton Hill don't oppose migrants living in their community. They actually welcome them. What they don't want is thousands placed in one certain area, saying it's a recipe for disaster and violence, and that's exactly what they are seeing. They're calling on the city to end the lease with the shelter here on Hall Street, which expires this March.
Too big to be safe.
Residents of Clinton Hill, Brooklyn, taking to the streets Tuesday evening, demanding the closure of this migrant shelter at 47 Hall Street, where more than 3,000 are being housed. They say the neighborhood is plagued with violence, and it all stems from the shelter.
We are here today because there is an attempt to put our neighborhood back 30 years in time. When there were stabbings and drugs and assaults, fights, fear, and killings. It used to be called Murder Avenue.
Their demands for action come after 2 men were shot to death and another injured in 2 separate shootings Sunday night. Police now looking for this man who they believe pulled the trigger.
Mayor Adams, you have blood on your hands.
According to the NYPD, the suspect shot 30-year-old Arturo Jose Rodriguez Marcano in the head just before 10:45 inside Steuben Playground. Less than 10 minutes later, he opened fire again, this time in front of 29 Ryerson Street, a migrant shelter just around the corner from the massive one on Hall Street.
Here's another question, man, that I think is actually fairly obvious, right? If New York has some of the most strict gun control laws in the entire country, and illegal immigrants are not a crime problem, then how are those two things converging to create these kinds of problems? You know, I mean, the liberal position, man, is that, you know, no man is illegal and more gun control works. Well, if those things are both true, how is this even happening?
Suspect identified as a Venezuelan migrant accused of shooting 2 officers after they tried to pull him over for driving the wrong way. But prosecutors say his criminal activity goes much deeper than this one incident.
Fox Eyes' Jessica Formosa joins us live from East Elmhurst with what he allegedly fessed up to. Jess.
Natasha and Teresa, he said a lot, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But as you recall, this suspect came into this country illegally a year ago. He was arraigned on a number of charges, including 2 counts of attempted murder in the first degree. He used to live here at this shelter off Dimars Boulevard, but says he was kicked out. Now, he made a shocking confession to authorities, saying that he is a member of the vicious Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, and that gang is smuggling firearms into migrant shelters. Bernardo Raul Castro Mata, the Venezuelan migrant who shot 2 police officers earlier this month, came face to face with the judge this morning. The 19-year-old arrived in a wheelchair and didn't say a word, but prosecutors say he spoke at length with investigators, giving shocking details of that night and what he's been up to since he arrived in New York City. He told cops he worked for DoorDash and received the gun he used to shoot the officers from a friend.
Last night, I was coming home from work. I was in a car with my friend, and my friend, Jose Maita, gave me a bag with a gun in it and asked me to keep it for her.
The suspect confessing to police that he's a member of the notorious Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. According to audio recordings read by prosecutors, Mata claims he was recruited by a cousin to join the gang to do robberies. But the most shocking claim, the gang has been smuggling guns into city-run shelters.
Tren de Aragua members are smuggling firearms into city shelters inside food delivery packages. That way they'll have to go through the metal detector.
I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that this is probably the first time that most people are actually seeing this, right? Or have ever heard anything like this. But this is what the real world actually looks like. This is what happens when brainwashed liberals think that they're being tolerant and accepting. You know, they get literally used by these people. They get taken advantage of every single time. And we are allowing dangerous groups to flood the system with people. And then we are literally funding, you and me, we're funding, taxpayer dollars are funding, literally paying for these people to live and paying them to smuggle weapons to each other. And we now have a woman running for president, a former prosecutor who claims to believe that criminal justice policy and immigration policy are just not the same thing, right? She's just another liberal getting used and taken advantage of, right? But she doesn't have to deal with the consequences. I mean, she's completely insulated from all these consequences, but you and me, we are not.
21-year-old Eni de Jesus Urbina Mendez, who lived at the shelter, was shot multiple times.
There is simply no universe where you can cram 4,000 vulnerable people together safely. Do you believe us now? How many more murders will it take?
The residents say loss of life was just a matter of time, claiming for almost a year they have been pleading with their councilwoman, Crystal Hudson, and Mayor Adams to do something about it.
You are mass warehousing nearly 4,000 migrants in one city block across 2 shelters.
Those in attendance tonight say they aren't opposed to housing migrants in their neighborhood, just not thousands in a span of 2 blocks.
That's the problem right there, man. I mean, they say they're not opposed to having migrants and helping migrants, right? They just don't want them in their neighborhood, right? I mean, you almost cannot blame them for framing it like that, really. I mean, when you think about it, there's a lot of things that go into the way they're framing it, but they're probably just afraid to say that, they're against migrants because they know that the left will literally vilify them and claim that they're racist or whatever, MAGA cult members, whatever. But I promise you, these people are against it. When your neighborhood is getting destroyed and people are getting shot in the very same neighborhood, you're not even allowed to arm yourself for protection, then I promise you, you're against it. I mean, these people, they are begging for help and no one cares. No one cares. My only question is this, how far will they go to get their help? Will they actually change the way they vote? Will they actually get rid of the Democrats that think they're racist for even being concerned? I doubt it, but I hope so. I really, really do.
We have 4,000 new arrivals here. That's roughly 20 times the size of a legal DHS shelter. So your job is to open 20 smaller shelters spread across the boroughs.
Now, the residents are telling us tonight that the mayor has agreed to come here to Clinton Hill to see for himself and speak with the residents. It's unclear when that will happen. We reached out to the mayor's office as well as to the city council Crystal Hudson's office for a comment, but we have not heard back from neither. We're live in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. I'm Jessica Formoso, Fox 5 News.
My gut tells me, man, that they will not be changing the way that they're voting. If you're showing up at a protest of a problem and you're not advocating for real solutions like actually closing the border, like actual deportations, but instead your answer is, instead of having one big shelter, can we just spread it out to a bunch of smaller, more spread out shelters? Spread it all across the boroughs. I don't know what they think that's going to do. Just spread the smuggled guns and people, spread the shootings all around the city, not just in Brooklyn. I don't know, man. But if that's the way you're approaching it, then you really don't have a full understanding of the problem that you're actually experiencing. I mean, that's not a solution. Go shoot someone else is not a sustainable solution, right? These are not people that are going to be fixing their own problems at a ballot box, right? And here's the thing, man. If problems like that don't wake you up, then you are completely and totally screwed. You have absolutely no hope. And if they don't have hope, if they can't fix it, they're experiencing what they're experiencing. I'm a little worried about the rest of us, right? But that's just my take, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.